The biggest patch of the year from Android came out just a few days ago. Google released its September patch with 120 fixes, including 2 vulnerabilities already being actively exploited. The patches covered Linux kernel, Android runtime, Qualcomm components, and the Power VR GPU. As always, anytime we're talking about an Android update story, Pixel users and users of Google OEM devices will get prompt updates. Device users from other manufacturers may have a delay depending on continuing support. Let's see. Most of the vulnerabilities are rated high severity with a few critical issues, and only about 4% of the US market share of Android devices are Pixel users. In terms of mitigations, as always, when new patches are available as soon as viable, go ahead and do that update, especially if you are a Pixel user, because you will have that available sooner. So let's see. We've got, how do you handle Android devices that are either too old or no longer getting manufacturer supported updates? Mike, I imagine you've got some experience with this.
Yeah, it's tough because it's like, what are you using the devices for? You can lock down Android devices that are out of date. And most of honestly, like the vast majority of Android vulnerabilities are going to come through apps. So, like, they may be in the OS itself, but they're triggered through downloading malicious apps, right? Like apps that are weird one off, they get taken over, the developer account gets taken over and they push a bad version. Um, so you can really protect yourself on step one, clean your apps up, right? Like only keep the things you use. Is It's a bit of a like digital hoarding situation, right? Like these things have permissions on your phones. They'll come back to
Right.
haunt you if you don't clean things up. But yeah, aside from that, if you're worried about more of the Wi-Fi vector attacks. There's not really a lot you can do once you have an end of life phone, or if you're just on a phone that has very frequent or infrequent patches. It's almost worth upgrading at this point. I will say, like, some of the manufacturers and especially Google do have a decent long tail as far as like supporting devices. It's a lot better than it used to be, where it's like I bought this thing and a year later it's gone. But be aware when you buy it how old the actual phone is as well, because that matters.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a good call out that, it definitely does vary manufacturer to manufacturer, but I do think that there's been a strong trend in general of supporting those devices for longer rather than, yeah, a year into a 2-year contract, pushing folks to update if they want to still get security updates, which is, I think, more where we were earlier on in Android's development history.
Yep.
And for folks that may not have a defined MDM budget, but are still trying to get a handle on both Android and iOS devices that are in their environment, are there any free, either inbuilt within the OS or free to use MDM tools that we may recommend for folks to take a look at?
There can be. It depends on, this is going to depend on like how big your fleet is. What type of device are these, like BYOD? Are they, corporate owned? A lot of that can play into effect. If you have small pools of devices, you definitely can get away with like free MDM. A lot of the platforms have it built in now. Let's say if you're a Google Workspace shop, like you can set that up without buying an extra license for MDM. You don't get all of the fun features that you would from buying MDM licenses, but there's some amount of protection and control you can get. I believe Microsoft also has a free tier on their MDM as well, but it's like limited. But some control is better than no control. BYOD gets tough. If you don't own the device, you're up to you're basically controlling policies at that point, and maybe doing posture checks if you can during logins, that type of stuff. But I would take that into your risk register and just thought process when you're building out systems as far as like what's connecting.